huge art installation by Ghanaian artist Ibrahim Mahama enveloping a side of London's brutalist Barbican Centre in toises of purple cloth is unveiled in London. Purple Hibiscus, named after Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's eponymous 2003 novel, is 2,000 square meters of purple panels with traditional Ghanaian Batakari robes hand-sewn into the fabric. Let's check it out.
Passed down from generation to generation, the brightly colored fabric panels feature scores of traditional robes known as batakaris, previously worn and cherished by everyone from Ghanaian royals to everyday people. Mahama began collecting them more than a decade ago for eventual use in his artworks. Known internationally for creating massive installations that clad buildings, Purple Hibiscus is his first large-scale UK public commission. For it, he worked with networks of female weavers in his native Ghana to embroider the robes onto the striking fabric, now draped over a sliver of the famously grey concrete Barbican complex.
The idea was to focus purely on the labor of making, because we wanted to make a reference between the labor that is going into the physical production of the work in relation to the labor that went into the building of the Barbican, this very brutalist architecture, and the surface of the concrete, which everything was chipped out by hand after the concrete was cast. So for me, I think those two histories are very important to highlight.
Some of the robes have been urinated on or had other things doused on them by their previous owners, because the idea is to break the soul away from the material, he explained.
It's pretty difficult to convince people to give you like things that they've owned for generations. It's also because when people pass it on from one generation to the other, they somehow believe that the soul of the family is somehow contained within the cloth.
Sometimes adorned with amulets, they were once mythically thought of as armor to protect against the bullets of colonial soldiers. On display in the Barbican until mid-August, the exhibit resonates with the district's history of mass destruction during World War II and as a one-time home to the cloth trade. The light and bright purple and pink fabric, stitched with the history-laden fragile robes, deliberately contrasts with the hard-edged surroundings and typically grey London sky overhead.
So we needed a mass population, but particularly keep people coming from, let's say, the so-called margins of the world in order to be able to produce a work that somehow comes to London, and also it will allow us here to reflect on what it means, what labor actually means in this century we live in.
The artist appears unconcerned by the potential impact of London's notoriously wet weather on his painstakingly assembled installation.
As the exhibition goes along, there'll be times where the material will be raised because the winds are too strong. There'll be times where there'll be rips in it, which it will be repaired. So I think the audience will see the material going apart and coming back together.
Michelle Joseph for VOA News.